Hey there, it's Monday and time for Monday Mastery. And I'll wait just a couple of seconds here for people to jump on. I hope you had a great weekend and did something fun. I was here in my studio all weekend recording my new online course, uh, Dating Made Simple Academy, and I've been in my studio most of the day today. So it's getting close. I'm getting excited. I'm almost half finished recording, so hopefully by the end of the week, all the recordings will be done and uploaded, and I'll be ready to go live with the beta testers. Hey, Jacqueline, thanks for joining in. Glad to see you're here. Hope you had a great weekend. I see you're traveling quite a bit. Sorry about that. I just had to make some adjustments here. Um, I see Jacqueline posting on another uh, morning broadcast that, and I see you're posting from a variety of different areas. Hope you're enjoying your flying and all kinds of good stuff in life. Anyway, uh, good. I'm glad to see. Jacqueline says she's very busy. So anyway, I had a topic come up. One of my regular followers sent in a topic a couple of weeks ago about cheating. She was in a relationship for a couple of years and spent uh, apparently a good part of the time he was cheating on her. So that's what brought up the topic today. And so I just wanted uh, to share some ideas and some thoughts. Pastor Art, that's right. I try to watch him. Jacqueline says she's watched the website where or the live broadcast we both watch is Pastor Art, and it's a Bible. Uh, oh, I am just drawing a blank. Devotional. It's a Bible devotional, and we both watch that in the morning. It's at 6 o'clock Central Standard Time, and it's an interesting podcast. I love what he has to share. So anyway, the question was, how do you know when someone's cheating on you? And I guess the same thing. I guess the same thing can be asked of lying, because cheating involves lying, and there are signs that 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 you're being cheated on. And I think the first thing you have to recognize. Sorry about that. I keep moving things around here. Uh, I have one set up for recording Monday Mastery, and another setup for recording my course, and Dating Made Simple Academy, and it's I'm just trying to get the Monday Mastery stuff aligned right. I've been busy all day. Anyway, I guess one of the big things that I want to share. Hey, Sophia, glad to see you're here. Um, Sophia, let's see, let's put this up real quick. Sophia says when they're doing something different than they usually do. That's actually one of the cues. That is actually one of the cues. Now it's going to be different for every relationship, but there are some fundamentals that 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 kind of cross over from one relationship to another. So, and that is they start doing some things differently. And one of the things that one of the common things is they start or they have an improved appearance. They may start working out more. And these things apply to both men and women. It's not just men. It applies to women also. It could be new clothes. If they change their attire from an article I read says sweatpants are great for are just fine for a party. Um, and he starts wearing slacks and a nice a nice shirt, and that might be a sign that something's going on. And change of cologne or adding cologne to your wardrobe. There's a lot of different signs there. But one of the most important things I think that we need to recognize is that if you're asking the question, if it's a thought in your mind, it's probably already happening. See, your gut instinct is, in my opinion, your gut instinct is the Holy Spirit pointing you or guiding you. And it's one of those things that when you have that uneasy feeling, when you have a gut instinct that something's going on, it probably is. Now, before you go and start accusing somebody of something, it's probably a good idea to accumulate some evidence that there is something going on. Beyond appearance, it can be things like secretive phone conversations or computer, spending extra time on the computer. And hey, Nancy, thanks for joining in. Glad to see you're here. And hiding things on the computer. Now, for those, and I'm not extremely computer literate, but you can go in and do a search history on if you've got if you're married and or even if you're not and you have a computer in the house, you can go into the computer and look at the search history or the browsing history, and you can show where they've spent time. If it's been on it could be on social sites, it could be. And cheating has a much broader definition, or I look at cheating in a much broader definition than just physically being with someone. You could be on the phone having phone sex, or be on sex sites, and it can be pornography. Your partner can be looking at pornography, and I still consider that cheating. And Terry says, hey, Terry, thanks for joining in. Glad you're here. Terry says, I've never experienced this, but know of and met people that have. Kind of scary to think about. Yeah, it is. It can be. And she follows up with, I'm not technical enough to know how to check history. All you have to do is, Terry, if you can Google, if you can do a Google search, he said, you can just Google, how do I check my browser history? And it will pull up 1,000 hits on that subject and videos to show you how to do it. Hey, Stephen, thanks for joining in. Glad to see you're here, brother. Hope to be up in northern Wisconsin, and hope to see you up there not too long. Terry says, I love Google. Hey, Shar, thanks for joining in. Hope your weather is nicer than ours. Shar is in Aiken, I forget, South Carolina. And we've had rainy and cool here today. Anyway, I digress. But cheating can be done in so many different forms. Is what I'm trying to say, because it's not necessarily just a physically act. You can be cheating emotionally, and that can be done online, by phone, in any way. But when there's and part of the way you detect that is through checking your partner's phone logs, recent phone calls, their recent phone calls, to see who he or she has been talking to, and Nancy says, or DuckDuckGo is a good search engine. There's a number of good search engines. And Steven says he's in Pennsylvania. Wow, you're still cruising, brother. And they're getting back to the topic at hand. One of the other signs is periods of significant, or where your significant other is unreachable. When they turn their phone off or can't be found or are hiding themselves, so you can't find out where they are, what they're doing, or hear any background noise. It's this is one of those signs. It should be raising your antenna on what's going on, or that something might be amiss. I mean, there's going to be some people that they're in meetings, that they're, depending on what they do, they might be with customers or clients, and you just can't reach them. So it all depends on your particular situation. This is another interesting one. One of the signs of cheating is significantly less or more or different sex in your relationship. When the sex changes, that could be a sign that there's problems in your relationship. And it's you have to, and it might not be, but it's a sign that something else is going on. They're trying to make up, because they want to have more sex because they're feeling guilty. They're having sex with somebody else. They are tired of having sex because they're having sex with somebody else, or they're learning new tricks in the bedroom. And I don't mean to laugh about it, but that's part of the process sometimes, that something may be going on. And let's see, Nancy says, to me, if I felt the need to ever check out what they've been doing, that's not the relationship for me. And that's a good point, Nancy. I think that's an awesome point. And I firmly believe that if the relationship is extraordinary, if it's a great relationship, that there's not going to be a lot of reason to stray. If you're with your soulmate, if you're in an extraordinary relationship, whether you don't believe in soulmates or not, you're in an extraordinary relationship. If either of you feel the desire to look elsewhere, you have wandering eyes. Now, and I'm not saying that you can't admire a handsome man, or you can't admire a beautiful woman as she walks by or is sitting by you or whatever. But when I say a wandering eye, you're actively looking for somebody else. And or if you're in the middle of a conversation with your significant other and their eyes are following somebody of the opposite sex and they're just ogling them, that's a sign. And in an extraordinary relationship, you just come together in such a tight bonding way that the outside world just doesn't have much of a chance to break into your world, or to break your world apart. It's just there's no feeling as awesome as being with someone that you have no desire to be with anyone else. And if you find that in your relationship, and I'm saying that if you each individually find that you tend to have a wandering eye, or wondering what it would be like to be with somebody else, you're probably in the wrong relationship. And I say that because and I've experienced it. I've dated women, and it just wasn't quite all there. The relationship just wasn't there. There was something missing. In some cases, it was part of an intellectual connection. In some some relationships it was a spiritual connection, and but there's an aspect of the relationship that's missing. And whenever you start to feel yourself being drawn away, it's time to walk away from that relationship. And just it doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that the other person is terrible. It doesn't mean that you're terrible. But walk away before you have the opportunity to cheat. Or if you're sensing that the other person is looking, then you might want to say, yeah, it's time for me to move on. And Nancy says, isn't trust one of the foundations for extraordinary relationships? Absolutely. It is. And I think that trust is formed when all things come together. It doesn't, and I maybe not, because there's a lot of people that I trust. There's a lot of, and I'll use me as an example. There's a lot of women that I've trusted, but they weren't the right one. So trust is an important part when you're in a relationship, but you also have to recognize that if either one of you is feeling that there's a need to look or a desire to look, then 98% odds are that you're in the wrong relationship. Because when you're in the right relationship, it's just a feeling, it's a connection that you have no desire to look anywhere. So to look anywhere else, you have no desire to be with anyone else. Everything is right where it's at. I mean, it doesn't mean that every relationship is going to be rainbows, unicorns, and butterflies every day. It's still going to. Life happens. You're still going to have problems, but when you're with the right person, you work through those problems, and you may get angry with each other. There may be an occasional slam door, but in the end, you come back together because of your love and respect for each other. That you work things out. You apologize if you said something that hurt your partner. Or they come back and apologize for hurting you. But there's a communication process there that you have to reach out and say, okay, I screwed up, and you got to be able to say, I'm sorry. I screwed up. You got to admit when you screwed up. One of the other aspects of one of the other potential signs of a cheating partner is that they start acting hostile towards your relationship, and that's that's a sign that there's something unhealthy within the relationship, and is not necessarily the external that's going on, but there's something else internally. There's something missing, and that's part of a conversation you might want to have, saying, hey, listen, if you're this hostile, or if you're this upset with me, what is it that I'm doing that's offending you? What is it that I can do to make this relationship better? What is it I can do to be a better husband? What I can do to be a better wife? What is it, or boyfriend or girlfriend? What can I do to make this relationship better, or stronger? And that's a question we all should be asking, even in an extraordinary relationship. I'm not talking about trying to mend a broken relationship, or a relationship that has a lot of problems. I'm a firm believer that when you discover that you're not with your soulmate, or you're not in an extraordinary relationship, that it's time to leave. I mean, you can, and one of the saddest things I hear, and this especially comes from ladies, is that you try to give the relationship 110%, even though from the first month or first the first week. You saw that there were problems, or that it wasn't a great relationship, and you hope and pray and are looking to for that relationship to somehow morph into your soulmate relationship, and it's just not going to happen. You end up spending a year, 2 years, 5 years in a relationship when you know that it's just not going to happen. And you know it deep down in your soul, but you tell yourselves that I want to give it 110%. I want to make sure that I've done everything that I can. And I would venture to guess that 99 out of 100 of those relationships fail, simply because it wasn't right from the beginning. And there's no sense in continuing and Nancy says, that's me. And Nancy, and that, while it's an admirable trait, one of the things that I try to teach is when you start seeing the red flags, where's my little envelope here? When you start seeing red flags waving, that's a sign that it's time to walk away. It means stop. Proceed. Don't proceed no further. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. And Terry says, even when the relationship is great, communication is key. Absolutely. And that's, although when you're in a great relationship, typically great communication follows, because in a great relationship, you may stumble. As much as even as much as I teach this stuff, stupid crap comes out of my mouth, and I approach situations in the wrong way, and I found myself recently reverting back to a pattern that I had with my father in a conversation I was having with someone, and it's just when I walked out of that relationship. Or not the relationship, when I walked out of that conversation, it was like, holy crap, where did that come from? And I totally blew the conversation. I totally blew my attitude. I totally blew the what I was trying to accomplish in that conversation. And I admit it. It's just, sometimes stuff slips out, and we need to apologize and say, yeah, I was wrong, I screwed up, and so it even this stuff happens to me, and I teach it, but I don't beat myself up over it, and you shouldn't either. We all make mistakes, and we should learn from those mistakes and share those conversations, and come back later and say, I really screwed up in my conversation, and I apologize, and I know I said some things that weren't right, or I handled it improperly, and I know I know you felt attacked, and or vice versa, and just walk those things out, but that's all part of great communication. It's all part of connecting on a deeper level. So, and that's all part of developing great communication, is being able to admit when you're wrong, being able to say, yeah, I screwed up, being able to say, yeah, I could have handled this better. And back to some of the signs of cheating. An altered schedule is, hey Geneva, thanks for joining in. An altered schedule is a common sign. Now some folks, their schedule changes. And I know for some folks, anybody that does shift work, schedules can change. But if suddenly you're working late at the office, or he or she is working late at the office, and it could be that they're if they're working with somebody of the opposite sex, that can be that can be a big red flag. And Geneva says, this is also true for your relationship with your kids. Absolutely. Great communication is important for all aspects of our lives. You know, it doesn't make any difference whether it's your significant other. It doesn't make any difference if it's with your kids, your coworkers, your boss, strange, you know, the barista at Starbucks. You know, and Nancy pointed this out last week that she heard a couple of times about grumpy old men, and you know, since that comment, I've started catching myself being in a better mood and treating people, especially on the phone, service people, people that I don't know, and you know, that are trying to help me, and you know, that things aren't exactly going my way, and I had a couple of conversations like that last week, and it just seemed that when I changed my attitude, they were just so appreciative of not being raked over the coals and and being abused on the phone. And Terry says, if they leave 3 hours before they need to be at work, yeah, that would be a real good sign. Or they come home 3 hours late. You know, now if they're out playing golf, or you know, they've pre-notified you that they've got something, although you know that they've got a project or something that they're working on, and it will take extra time, or you know, there are, you know, you have to walk a fine line with some of these things. You know, these are clues, but they're not definitive. You know, if he does this or she does this, that they're having an affair. You know, it could be that there's legitimate reasons for a schedule changing. It could be a major project, but if it's a continual thing, then you know, and again, if your antenna are up, and your antenna, I guess that's the way it would go. If your antenna are up, then uh, it's it's time to really pay attention. And if you really have trust issues, if you're not in a marriage, then it may be time to just say, hey, listen, maybe we need a break. This is what I'm thinking. This is the way things are appearing, and you'll probably get rebuffed, because one of the clues is they will dismiss your fears and say, no, you don't know what you're talking about. This is just all imagination. It's all in your head. There are going to be some people that are going to accuse you. Well, it's maybe you're just accusing me because you're cheating, and they're going to flip the script on you, and I just gotta. When I said that I've come a little bit out of my grumpy old man, he says, "Great, I won't charge you for that." Thank you, I appreciate that, Nancy. So there are so many different aspects to it, but again, the key is to, hey, Sharon, thanks for joining in. Glad to see you're here. There are so many different aspects to cheating or having an affair, and again, it doesn't necessarily need to be a physical relationship. It can be a digital relationship or a cyber relationship where they're online and communicating. You know, there's been so many stories about people cheating with old classmates, or reconnecting with people on Facebook, and getting involved that way, and you know, there are just so many ways to cheat on somebody. But I firmly believe that if you go back to and look at your relationship, there's got to be something missing. I dated a woman several years ago that, when I tried to explain there was something missing in her relationship, she thought she was the perfect wife, and she probably was. She was a great woman. Uh, but hey, Teresa, thanks for joining in. But she couldn't grasp the fact that while her husband may have been her soulmate, she wasn't his. And that can be a fairly complex relationship or concept to understand. Just because you've met somebody that you believe is your soulmate, they meet everything they want that you want, or everything that you have on your must-have list, and they have none of your deal breakers, doesn't mean that you're automatically their soulmate. They may have different aspects, and what you have there is you're ending up in a one-sided relationship. And when you're in a one-sided relationship, the other party has all the power. The party the person that loves the least has all the power. Let me get caught up here a little bit. Nancy says, so don't single out one action, but rather a variety of off behaviors. Absolutely. And again, you can check on the technology side. Look at the phone and look if you can, if you have access to their phone or access to their computer, look at excuse me, look at the sites that they're going to, see if it may be pornography involved. It may be, they spend excessive amount of time on Facebook, and unfortunately I don't know of a way of tracing who they're talking to. Or, well, I guess you could go to their messages. And if you go to Messenger, you would be able to see who they're talking to. And same thing on their phone. You can check the messages. You can check the call list. See who they've been talking to. And Teresa says, I think that instincts tell you, but sometimes you don't want to face the truth. And Teresa, that is a huge, huge, huge factor. And sometimes we so desire to be in a relationship, and we so don't want to end a relationship, because we'd much rather keep going in a mediocre relationship, because we don't want to start over. And the one thing that I've said this for years is that the pain of staying is the pain of leaving is always greater than the pain of staying in a bad relationship. But the pain of leaving is temporary, where the pain of staying is permanent. So think about that. If the pain of leaving is just temporary, it may be greater, but it's only temporary. And so if you really want to be in an extraordinary relationship and you're hanging out in a mediocre relationship, then it's time to move on. The only time that you truly have wasted time in a relationship is from the time that you discover that this isn't extraordinary, or that you've discovered that there are, get my little banner out here, that there are red flags that are flying that you're seeing. That's when it's time to leave. And there should be no questions asked. It's just, okay, this isn't the relationship for me. And Terry says, I don't understand why someone would choose to cheat. I've run into several guys on dating sites that when I point blank asked if they were married, one just today on Facebook dating, when he said his wife didn't know. I asked, why do you think it's okay? I'm waiting to see if he answers. And and I'm not going to justify it. He may, in his head, he may be justifying that it's expensive to get a divorce, which it is, and it's typically more expensive for guys than it is for ladies. But I know plenty of women that have walked away with nothing, and so I can't say, I can't generalize that much on that, because if the relationship isn't right. But again, I think it points back, Terry, to the fact that there's something wrong in that marriage. There's something missing. Maybe the first 10 years were great. Maybe the first 15 or 20 years were great. But there was something missing all along the way. And I only they can tell what it is. Whether there's one of the four cornerstones missing, whether they're missing the intellectual connection or spiritual connection or emotional connection or physical connection. Maybe they don't have great communication. Whatever it is, there's something that's amiss. I firmly believe that the better part of 90% of relationships of cheaters are missing something in their relationship. Now there are some people that are just emotionally immature, and they're always looking for that next high of finding the next relationship, and they pursue somebody, and if they're married, they've all of a sudden they don't have that high anymore of the chase of catching the person they're pursuing. And sometimes there are those people that have that aspect. They're not emotionally mature. I'd be curious. I'd be curious, Terry, when he answers you, if he answers you, and I'd be curious to see what he says. And Teresa says, I don't understand it either. You can be the best partner in the world, but I think they get a high from cheating. It makes you feel so bad and like you're not good enough or pretty enough. It sucks. Yes, it does. But and again, that's what I was trying to get to, Teresa, is that sometimes you're in a one-sided relationship. And I've been in those too. I've thought, I've dated some women that I was just head over heels in love with them, and thought they were the best thing since sliced bread. But there was something on their end that they didn't find, that I was missing, that they wanted. And we have to understand that. When to find that extraordinary, to find an extraordinary relationship, it has to go both ways. It can't be just you madly in love with somebody else, or it can't be they are your soulmate but they're not yours, or you're not theirs, I should say. It has to go both ways, and so it can be very hurtful, but you have to understand it's not you, it's them. And unfortunately, just because you felt so much in love, or you thought he was the greatest thing, the greatest guy you've ever met, if it's not a give and take, if it's not going both ways, if you're not both giving 110% to the relationship, then like I said earlier, the one that loves the least has all the power, because you're willing to do anything. You're willing to jump through any hoop to make that relationship work. And when that's the case, you're giving up all your dating power, all your ability to have a great relationship, an extraordinary relationship. And Teresa says, "Boy, it hurts so bad either way to me, but you're right. It gets easier, and it will get easier." And Teresa says again, "It happened with my ex and the guy I dated. The guy I dated, man, you get healing from one relationship, and then you get it again. It's painful, absolutely. Um, but that's where uh, and that's where you have to pay attention early on. And that's why it's so important to have your must-have list and your deal breakers list. Those are your barriers. Those are your boundaries that you set for yourself. And the minute you accept somebody that doesn't have all your must-haves, the minute you accept somebody that has any one of your deal breakers, uh, you're violating your own boundaries. You're not staying true to yourself. And I'm not picking on you, Teresa. I'm just we've all done this, and that's why it's so important to have these things written down and carry them with you at all times. I have mine on my phone, and it's with me all the time. And if I have a problem, uh, it, it's it's easy for me to go back and refresh my memory. What's important to me? Um, Hey, John, thanks for joining in. John says safe people are difficult to recognize out of desperation. Yeah, when you're dating in a desperate mode, you're dating from a position of weakness, and that's why I always encourage everyone to get to a point, especially if you've come out of a bad relationship or a bad marriage. Take time to recover from that. Get past the anger and the hate and the hurt and the pain from that relationship, and then take time for yourself. Get to know yourself again. Peel back the layers that you've buried for however long. For some of us, we buried some things for 10, 20, 15, 30 years. Um, and we have to peel back the layers to see what's important to us. I share the story oftentimes that when I was married, at one point my ex-wife came to me, or my future ex-wife came to me, and said she didn't like my sense of humor anymore. And my sense of humor can be weird. I can be sophomoric. I can, just and I can be sarcastic, and admittedly, she was the brunt of some of my humor quite often. But she one day she came to me and she said, "No more. I'm done. I don't like your sense of humor." And so from that point on, I had to start watching every word I say for fear of offending her. And it got to the point where I was walking on eggshells, and that's not a way to live. At least not for me. So there are things that we have to take time, and to John's point, we have to take time to uh, get to a point where we're comfortable with our own company. When you get to the point that you can say, I would love to have a relationship, but I'm okay with myself. I'm okay being alone. It doesn't mean we don't get lonely. It just means that we're not going to settle. We're not going to dive into a relationship just for company. Let me get caught up on some of these comments. Teresa says, "But how do you know? Because both guys and gals are on the best behavior up to 3 or 4 months, and finally their true side shows." Well, and again, Teresa, I firmly believe that with most people, you can start ferreting out within 30 days or less whether they're worth pursuing further. And that's why it's so important to have your must-have and deal breaker lists. And as you date, even if it's a one and done date, you'll find something that you really like about somebody and say, "Yeah, I'd really want that in my next relationship." So add that to your list. Or if you find a characteristic that says, "Oh my gosh, I could not live with that," whatever it is, you add that to your deal breaker list. Or, and you don't want to get your deal breaker list too long. You want to if there's any possible way, flip the deal breakers around to a positive. And if you don't want to be with a smoker, don't your must have shouldn't be must not smoke. It should be must be smoke free, because I guarantee you, as soon as you start looking for somebody that, or you frame it in a negative that they must not smoke, you're going to find smokers, because that's what you're focusing on. Just if I were to ask, and all of you, when I say no smokers, what picture comes to mind? I can 99% guarantee you that you're picturing somebody with a cigarette between their fingers smoking. And flip that over to must be smoke free. Then what do you see? He or she is going to not have a cigarette in their hand. They're going to be smoke free. So it's an important distinction, that when you create your must-have list and your deal breakers list, that you state them properly. On the deal breaker list, they can be negative. And I'll just use my list: no cats, no tattoos, and no porn. It's as simple as that. Those are the only three on my list. And so, if somebody comes to me that has cats or tattoos or watches porn, I'm out. It's just that simple. And some of these things you may not know within the first couple of days, but you'll eventually find it out. And if after the first 30 days, you see you see possibilities, then keep dating and go further. And Teresa, to your point, there's not necessarily, you're not necessarily going to see everything in the first 30 days, but you're going to see enough that you're going to be able to make a reasonable decision. But again, if it's after 30 days, if it's 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, and you start to see problems, say, okay, I'm done. It's better to find out in the 4th month than in the second year. Rather than hang. If you've seen it in the 4th month of dating somebody, don't stick around for another 2 years. Move on. Life is too short. We need to be searching for our soulmate, and if we're not with them, there's no point in sticking around in a relationship that isn't going to work long term. Geneva says, I'm sorry, I'm getting caught up. I need to get caught up here. Geneva says, my ex still trying to come back after having an emotional affair. It's been almost 3 years now. I never thought in a million years I'd be able to move forward. I was so codependent, but here I am, loving my single life to the fullest. I'm 42 in July, and happy pre-birthday, and still rediscovering things about myself I never knew I could do without. Never knew I could do without a partner. I'm challenging myself. Awesome. And see, and Geneva, that you're in an awesome space right now. You recognize that you're growing, you're finding out about yourself, and this is what it's all about. And especially from a codependent standpoint, that can create some really toxic relationships, or can allow you to get into really toxic relationships, because that's, codependent means, part of that is you got to be in a relationship, and it doesn't make any difference how good or bad it is. That relationship is important to you, and you're willing to do some forgive me, dumb stuff to maintain that relationship. And unless your ex has changed dramatically, I would start, and unless you have kids together, if you have kids, then you can't cut them off. But I wouldn't. And I've had this conversation with many people that the only reason, many times, the only reason you need to communicate with your ex is when it involves the kids. And some of you guys may have a great relationship with your ex, and that's fine. But way too many relationships end up on the rocks, and mine ended poorly, and I've forgiven her for the things that she's done. I don't know if she's forgiven me, but I can't worry about it. I don't worry about it. I've just moved on. And I don't try to stay in communication with her unless there's something financial or something with our daughter that comes up. She's moved on, I've moved on, and that's the way it should be. Nancy says, I know myself well. It's truly knowing others is the hard part, and it takes time, Nancy. And the question, and she says, and you make it sound so easy. Nancy, for the most part, it is relatively easy. I shouldn't say easy. It is simple. It's not necessarily easy. It is simple. And again, that's why it's so important to have your must-have and your deal-breaker list, because these are the foundations these are the boundaries that you set for yourself. And I'm not talking about building up a wall and keeping people out. I'm talking about, the things you need to be, the barrier, the fence that you need to set. Then nobody comes across that line, or nobody comes through that fence unless they meet all of your must-haves or deal breakers. And once they've displayed a deal breaker, or once they've displayed that they don't have all of your must-haves, then it's time to move on. Because either way, if you stick around, you're settling for less than extraordinary. And I don't know how many times I can beat this in, and I'll keep beating it until I'm beating this into you guys until I'm dead. Because it is so important. And it's the easiest way I know, or the simplest way I know, to protect yourself and keep yourself out of toxic relationships, or bad relationships, or mediocre relationships. And it may keep you out of some good relationships. But then you're looking for extraordinary. You should be looking for your soulmate. And let's see. Terry says, get caught up here. I've gotten used to being on my own. It just seems so much easier. But I'm going to stay hopeful. I will one day have a partner, and that will compliment me as I compliment him. Awesome. And that's the way it should be. And what I'll say is one of the things that I'll say is that it's so easy to become complacent when you're single. You get comfortable with your own company, you get comfortable being single, and a lot of times people stop looking. And when you stop looking, you make it harder for your soulmate to find you. Because you have to think about it as a two-way street. You're both looking for that extraordinary relationship, and when you're both looking, the odds are you're going to find each other. When one of you stops looking, it just makes it that much harder. So you have to maintain activity. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to settle. It just means that you keep going. And Teresa says, well, gosh, I was going to ask you out. I have a tattoo. My loss. Yeah, well, don't, Teresa, don't hold that against me. Those are my preferences. It's just, it's just, again, and we all have our own preferences, and that goes back to what I said earlier. When you're in a one-sided relationship, one of you wants one thing, the other wants what the other has. So and Teresa said, I wanted to make you laugh, and you did. And so, you know, again, you have to be careful when you're dating, that you don't get sucked into the belief that a one-sided relationship is okay. You know, if you find somebody that you feel is your soulmate, it is heartbreaking to let that person go. But you have to recognize that if they're not putting in the effort, reciprocating the effort to make the relationship work, then it's not a soulmate relationship. It's not an extraordinary relationship. And John says narcissist manipulation embeds triggers of self-doubt. It does. You should have been here last week, John, because that was what our conversation was about. Narcissism really messes with your mind, and John, go. I'm going to suggest you go back to last week's episode, and I see you're on Facebook, so you can just scroll back to last week's episode and we talked about narcissism for about an hour, and that is a very toxic relationship to get into. So anyway, we're coming up to the top of the hour, and I didn't get through all of the ways that are all of the signs of cheating, but you just recognize that when you have a sense that something's going on, something probably already is, and you may need to gather some additional evidence to verify. One of the other I'm going to give this one to you really quick. Friends seem uncomfortable around you, and if that would be a good sign that they know something's going on that you don't, and so just pay attention. Just pay attention, and it's nobody wants to go through it. It's happened to all of us, and the key is to learn from it and hopefully not spend any time in a relationship where that's going to happen. The idea is to find that extraordinary relationship, and you shouldn't have to worry about your partner, because in an extraordinary or soulmate relationship, they're going to be so bonded to you that and you to them that it's there's no point in looking elsewhere. It's like, you can see a handsome guy walk by or a beautiful woman walk by, and you can look at it and say, yeah, they're beautiful, but what would I do with her? Or what would I do with him? It's just, I've got what I want. I got what I need. And so there's no point in screwing around there. And Teresa says, when a man cheats and you question him, if they accuse you of it, that is a sign. Absolutely, they've just admitted their guilt, and it's time to move on. Saying, "Yep, okay, this relationship isn't for me. I wish you all the best." And lying and cheating go hand in hand. Yes, they do. And with that, I'm going to wrap this up today. I'm just going to do something here real quick. Banners. Just a reminder, I still have a few spaces open for Dating Made Simple Academy. Still have spaces open for beta testers, and the course will be available, I'm hoping, by June 1st, and we'll start going through it. If you're a beta tester, you get an 80% discount off the normal course price. Plus, you get all the materials that go along with the course, and you have lifetime access to any updates and any of the fun stuff that goes along with the course. Plus, we're going to, with a beta tester, we're going to do a 5-week group coaching Zoom call, and so that's all, and that the beta testers are the normal course price is going to be $247. Beta testers get it for the amazing price of $47. And again, we'll do 5 weeks of coaching, and all I expect from you is to go through the course and give me feedback. I want to help you with your dating and relationships as you go forward, and help you become a more intentional dater. And I know several of you are already signed up, and but for those of you that may be watching this later, there's still a few spots left. So I'd love to have you on board, and we'll rock and roll from there. Thank you, everyone. I hope you have a great and blessed week. I hope your weather is a little nicer than the rainy stuff we've got going on here today. I hope my weather gets better too. So anyway, I'll see you next Monday on Monday Mastery, and have a great and blessed week. Thank you. I love you guys, and we'll see you soon.